A lot of independent artists believe talent is the deciding factor. If the music is good enough, everything else will eventually fall into place. If the sound is strong enough, people will find it. If the vision is clear enough, success will follow. That belief is comforting, but it's incomplete. Because talent has never been the biggest separator. There are talented artists everywhere. In studios, in bedrooms, on social media, in cities that never get noticed. Talent gets attention. But attention alone doesn't build careers. What actually separates artists who build something sustainable from artists who stall isn't how gifted they are. It's how consistently they show up. And that's the part most people underestimate. Consistency doesn't sound exciting, it doesn't feel creative, and it doesn't make for viral stories. Nobody celebrates the artist who quietly shows up week after week. Nobody applauds the one who keeps going when nothing dramatic is happening. But that's where real momentum is built. Most artists don't fail because they aren't talented enough. They fail because they disappear too often for trust to form. They stop posting. They stop releasing. They stop showing up. Not because they gave up on the dream, but because consistency started to feel heavy. This episode is about that misunderstanding, about why talent alone isn't enough, why consistency matters more than raw ability, and why the artists who last aren't always the most gifted, they're the most reliable. Talent gets overvalued because it's easy to point to. You can hear it in a song. You can see it in a performance. You can feel it when something sounds different. So it becomes the thing people focus on. Early on, talent creates momentum. People react. They give compliments. They say things like, "You really got something." That feedback feels like progress. But talent doesn't compound by itself. If the output is inconsistent, audiences don't have time to build familiarity. If releases are sporadic, interest fades between moments. If you disappear for long stretches, people move on. Not because the talent wasn't there, but because there was nothing to stay connected to. Talent opens the door once. Consistency keeps the door open. This is where a lot of artists misread their situation. They assume the lack of results means the talent isn't strong enough, so they start changing things that don't need to be changed. They switch styles. They chase trends. They scrap ideas too quickly. But the real issue usually isn't ability, it's repetition. Consistency is what turns potential into recognition. Platforms reward patterns. Audiences respond to familiarity. Opportunities come to artists who feel present and dependable. When talent isn't paired with consistency, it stays theoretical. It sounds good, but it doesn't build trust. And without trust, nothing sticks. That's why so many talented artists feel overlooked. Not because they lack ability, but because the work never stayed visible long enough to take root. Trust isn't built through moments. It's built through repetition. People don't trust artists because of one great song or one strong post. They trust artists because they keep showing up. Consistency creates familiarity, and familiarity removes doubt. When people see you regularly, something subtle changes in how they perceive you. You stop feeling like a phase. You stop feeling like a hobby. You start feeling real. That perception matters more than most artists realize. Fans support artists they trust. Listeners return to voices that feel reliable. Opportunities follow people who don't disappear. Consistency signals commitment. It tells people you're not experimenting. You're building. That this isn't temporary. That you're serious enough to stay present even when nothing dramatic is happening. And consistency doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't require constant releases or daily posts. It requires predictability. Showing up when you say you will. Releasing when you said you would. Being present often enough that people don't forget you exist. That's how trust forms. Trust doesn't come from being impressive, it comes from being dependable. And once trust is there, support becomes easier. People don't hesitate as much. They don't overthink whether to engage or support. They feel comfortable staying connected. Consistency removes friction. It makes growth feel natural instead of forced. That's why consistency is more powerful than talent in the long run. Because talent gets noticed, but consistency gets remembered. Consistency is hard because it asks for discipline without applause. There's no immediate reward for showing up on days when nothing exciting happens. No rush of validation. No clear sign that today's effort matters. That's where most artists start slipping. They confuse consistency with intensity. They go all in for a short stretch, posting constantly, releasing back-to-back, pushing hard, and then burn out when the results don't match the energy. When exhaustion sets in, everything stops. Consistency isn't about doing the most. It's about doing what you can actually sustain. The artists who last don't rely on motivation. They rely on structure. They simplify their approach instead of stacking pressure. They choose realistic schedules instead of ambitious ones they can't maintain. They build routines that support the work instead of draining it. Another reason consistency breaks down is expectation. Artists expect consistency to feel inspiring, but most of the time it feels repetitive. It feels ordinary. It feels boring. But repetition is what creates familiarity. Familiarity is what builds trust, and trust is what turns effort into progress. Consistency doesn't mean showing up perfectly. It means showing up reliably, even when the work feels quiet, even when momentum isn't obvious, even when nobody is watching. That's where real growth happens. Not in bursts, but in steady accumulation. This is something I've had to learn the hard way. For a long time, I treated consistency like a personality trait instead of a skill. I assumed that if I really wanted it badly enough, I'd just stay motivated. That mindset didn't last. I would have strong bursts where everything felt aligned, ideas flowing, energy high, confidence up, and then life would happen. Energy would drop, focus would fade. When that happened, the work would slow down or stop completely. What I didn't understand at the time was that consistency isn't about intensity, it's about structure. Once I stopped relying on motivation and started building around reality, things changed. I had to get honest about what I could actually maintain. Not what sounded good, not what looked impressive, but what fit my schedule, my energy, and my life. That honesty made the process lighter. Instead of feeling like I was constantly behind, I started feeling steady. Instead of restarting every few months, I began continuing. Consistency stopped feeling like pressure and started feeling like alignment. I realized that momentum doesn't come from doing everything at once. It comes from doing the right things repeatedly. Small actions done regularly create more progress than big efforts done inconsistently. That shift didn't make the journey easier, but it made it sustainable. And sustainability is what gives independence real power. If Independent Artist Game is helping you think more clearly about how you move as an independent artist, the easiest way to support what we're building is to like the video, share it with another artist, and subscribe. Those small actions matter. They help this conversation reach people who are in the same stage you're in right now. And if you want to support beyond that, you can also grab merch at southentmusic.com. Everything there helps keep this series independent, consistent, and focused on the long game. Now let's bring this home. Talent opens doors, but consistency is what keeps them open. Independent artists who last understand that showing up regularly matters more than showing up perfectly. They don't wait for ideal conditions. They don't pause every time motivation dips. They build systems that allow them to keep moving even when the work feels quiet. Consistency turns effort into momentum. It allows people to recognize you. It allows trust to form. It allows progress to stack instead of resetting. And that's where most artists miss the point. They're chasing moments instead of building patterns. They're waiting for inspiration instead of committing to repetition. But growth doesn't come from moments. It comes from accumulation. Small actions, done consistently, create more impact than big pushes done occasionally. Consistency doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing what matters, regularly. When you show up consistently, your work has time to breathe. Your audience has time to connect. And your direction has time to clarify. That's when independence stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling intentional. The artists who build sustainable careers aren't always the most gifted. They're the most dependable. They understand that talent gets attention, but consistency builds trust. And trust is what turns effort into something real. That's the shift most people never make. And once you do, everything about how you move starts to change. That's the game.